everybody, it's Phil Cerzullo from Select Software Reviews, back with another really interesting interview. And today we're talking about this topic of digital transformation and specifically for third-party recruiting firms, folks that need to change their business to be competitive with the folks that are actually doing this in the market, to keep their margins, to continue to improve their business. And today I'm joined with Ben Lalanne, who is an entrepreneur who knows a lot about starting and growing a recruiting firm, and then also knows a heck of a lot about digital transformation as well. So Ben, thanks for joining us.
I feel pleasure to be here.
Awesome. So I think my goal for this is somebody who's watching this, who runs a recruiting firm, and maybe they use LinkedIn Recruiter, maybe they have a CRM, maybe not. Like they're basically doing like the 1.0 type of stuff. I want them to have an understanding for where should I go? What does that look like in the future? How do I get there? Sort of a 101 overview so that they can leave this conversation and have a lot of next steps to pursue and know what the value is from doing all of this work and honestly learning a lot of new stuff, which isn't always the easiest thing to do later in your career.
Yeah. Well, thanks, Phil, for this topic. I think it's really, of course, an important topic nowadays. Definitely, when you're today running an agency and a recruiting agency, definitely you might be in the vast majority of people whose business are not really digital or digitalized.
Yeah.
Obviously, as you said, you're on LinkedIn, you may have a CRM, you may have an ATS, but definitely, if that's the case, that's probably that's it. And that's where digitalization stops. However, at the same time, I think it's safe to say that everybody's on LinkedIn now. Your clients will be on your LinkedIn Recruiter for sure. So they post ads over there, they source candidates probably over there. So the whole question of the value that you bring to your clients is one thing, and the whole question of the value that you bring to the candidates as well is another one. So definitely you're probably in a situation where you need to ask yourself the right questions. I think if you are not digitalized at all today, trying to have the ambition to be a fully data-centric company, in the next few months, I don't think that's a realistic target. Well, if you want to do that, good luck and congrats. But I think there are some middle steps that you can follow, and there are some things that should be done, implemented, that are not necessarily really technical. There are a lot of technologies out there we're not talking about huge budgets compared to a CRM, for example, or an ATS. We're not talking about huge money, but we're talking about how do you make sure that this additional investment will definitely have a strong positive ROI on one side and bring value to your customers. And I would say that your customers are not only your clients' organizations, but also the candidates, because without them, there's no deal, there's no deal deal done.
Yeah, I love everything you're saying. And it's a topic that I hear a lot at conferences, whether they're in person or virtual. People are really struggling with this. Do you mind sort of giving like a minute on your background? Because I think you have a lot of street cred here to be somebody who's talking about this authoritatively.
Yeah, well, my background is I'm 40 years old. I've been studying business when I was younger, and I worked for 3 years in different companies, and I had nothing to do with HR or recruitment whatsoever. And then one day I just said, okay, there is something to be done in the recruitment industry, because on in my first experiences on the company side, I had seen some recruitments going on, and basically some agencies working for my company at the time who were basically not knowing anything about our business and what we were doing really. They were just pushing CVs, and that was it. So I was like, okay, basically there's something to do here. So, long story short, I co-founded a company in 2008. So, and for 12 years, until end of 2019, I managed this company. So the company was a headhunting agency in Paris, Dubai, and Singapore. So a lot of international clients, SMEs, large accounts, and working on specific recruitment and specific sort of profiles. And in the last, let's say, 11 months, 12 months, I've been working on two things. First of all, bringing support in the digitalization for agencies. So, with the topic we're talking today, of course, that's one. And the second one is I'm thinking about how to bring more value to organizations that do a lot of recruitment or internal mobility, and how can we help them through technology predicting uh, whether somebody is going to perform in the future in a given job, whether that's external candidate or an internal mobility. Or obviously, when you look at a bit of data on that, a failed recruitment or mobility costs so much in terms of money, time, efforts, reputation, business, that basically you need to secure a bit more, and not just rely on good old techniques. In just, some of my clients sometimes say, okay, we have a good feeling with this candidate. Yeah, but what about feeling as a criteria to give the responsibility to that person? That's probably a bit too vague.
Got it.
Yeah.
Do you mind giving us a framework for like how your brain organizes the technology that a recruiting firm would need? Is it in terms of like the candidate life cycle and what are those pieces, or is it another framework?
No, I think it's a good point. I think you first of all, you have to organize the information, whatever the way, or I'd say, at least you have to try. I think the whole idea of a workflow is really important, and it's not because we are 100% human based business that you don't have to think, in terms of workflow. So um, what I suggest is for an agency to start writing down what is my current workflow. So on the candidate side, for example, what is the workflow from the moment I sign a deal with my client to the moment a candidate is hired? And when I say hired, I should say is hired and onboarded, because I think you also have some skin in the game until a few months after the hiring is done. So first of all, write down your current workflow and try to take each step and try to think about, okay, how can I improve that step? So that shouldn't be difficult to start with. And for example, when you look at the metrics, for example, metrics are key, I think, today when running an agency.
And Ben,
You have
sorry
to look at,
to
yeah,
interrupt you, but do you
yeah.
mind, what's an example workflow for company you've worked with or your old business?
Um, for example, on the candidate side, well, basically it's when first you identify the candidate, whether he's already in your network or your ATS or not, whatever. When you identify the candidate, then you make a first approach. Then you have usually a lot of back and forth because the person doesn't answer the phone. You have to call back to leave a message, and the person calls back, leaves a message, and you can quickly have 2-3 days wasted, and sometimes up to a week wasted on that. And a week time in a recruitment process, sometimes it's a really long time. So you waste on value there.
Mm.
And then you have X number of interviews, maybe some assessment, maybe some serious game involved, some kind of assessment whatsoever. And then you include another candidate in your shortlist that you submit to your client.
Got it.
Then once you've done that, your workflow is not done yet, because then definitely you have a multiple point of contacts over the next few weeks, usually sometimes month, where you have to keep a close contact with your candidates in order to bring him or her information on what's going on in the client's mind process. Secure in a way the candidate in the fact that he or she is not forgotten by the client and by yourself. And obviously, no news is better. I mean, bad news or no update is better than not calling the candidate. So sometimes call your candidate even if there's nothing to say apart from, well, I don't have the client's feedback yet. There may be some explanation. They are maybe busy with the budget or stressed by the situation, which is fine. But then say something to the candidate, even if it's 2 minutes call per week. But do that. Yeah.
Got it. Makes sense. And I'm sure anybody who's been through this on the candidate recruiting side that process really resonates with them. And so your
Yeah.
next piece of advice is, okay, you've mapped your workflow. Now look at each discrete part of that workflow and think about what are the things that we do right now, and maybe what are the things we do in the future or we could do to optimize it. But how do we know how to optimize it? Like you and I talked about candidate rediscovery and ATS. Most recruiting firms are sitting on a gold mine of candidate resumes in their ATS that they never go back and look at and source from. That's sort of an obvious thing once you hear about it. But how do we know, like, what are the options out there?
Yeah, I think that's one of the key challenges. So I call an NTS, usually I call them the candidate's graveyard, because once your candidate resume ends in the ATS, well, that's the end of it. Why? Because the first thing a recruiter in an agency is going to do, not all of them, of course, but really vast majority of them, is not to go on the ATS, to search in the ATS, but it's good to search on LinkedIn or whatever job board out there. So there's a key question here. Why does a recruiter doesn't want to go in his using his own tools and go elsewhere? There are a lot of answers to that question, but I would say that if you want to change that as the agency owner or manager, you need to do something about that. So I would say there are two options. A hard one, which is cut the access to LinkedIn. That's the hard one, and it's likely to be to have a strong managerial impact in a team. I don't know if that's a positive impact or not. Up to you to decide. The second option is try to make the use of the ATS much easier. But this is something different. This is probably a deeper topic. Why? Because if it's an ATS from the market, usually they are now much better than even 2-3 years ago. But still, it's not that easy to use. If it's an ATS that you developed, for your own company, well, I would bet something that it's really not good at all in terms of user experience, user design, and user interface. So basically, you have a tool here where nobody in your team wants to use properly. So to come back to your question, what do you do about that? So from the candidate's graveyard, you have to make it a candidate's nightclub, let's say, where you guys want to go there, they want to enter, whatever. Even if there's a fee to pay, you get the point, right? You want to use it, and you want to use it before going out there on LinkedIn. So how do you do that? You have to get the data from your ATS and make it come at the upper stage where it's basically easy or easier to see. How do you do that? That's a bit more complicated. So there are some solutions out there on the market. There's a company, I mean, I don't want to state one company and not the other. So, but anyway, there are a bunch of companies where basically their promise is to say, you have a huge database, whether it's ATS, CRM, whatever, you give us what you need, and we're going to restructure your data. Um, I've seen that in reality once or twice. I'm not really convinced by the results, because if you sit on years and years of updating resume in the ATS with no structure, no tag, no way to identify the key skills, that's going to be almost impossible. So I don't have a perfect solution for that. Mm-hmm. What you should do is probably start today classifying and tagging the resumes. What you can do as well, again, it's maybe a bit more extreme, is to basically save your ATS database somewhere and then just work on external job board or LinkedIn. However, saying that, obviously there are some personal information in the CV, in the resumes. In Europe, we have the RGPD law, which is really strong. So you cannot do anything that you want. You're supposed to keep the information about for 3 months, more or less. You have to get the agreement from the candidate, obviously, that you're going to keep some information in your database. So you're dealing with a lot more topics than just business topics here.
Yeah. Got it. So some of these projects are harder than others. And even though that's a gold mine most firms are sitting on, it could take, months, depending on your existing systems, to kind of start mining that.
Yeah.
When you think about there's that concept of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which is like the pyramid, and it's like humans, sure, we need to sleep, we need to eat. And then once you satisfy those, you can think about, friendship and play and all these other things. What's sort of the base of the pyramid for the hierarchy of tech for these companies? And what are the things that are a little bit above that that you think are things people should be considering?
Yeah, I think everything is not as dark as the ATS discussion we just had. So good news is you probably the first layer of the Maslow pyramid would be around the metrics. I think you need to get and to follow key metrics for your agency. And coming back to the workflow thing that we were discussing, basically try to look at how much time do you need to reach a shortlist that is presentable to your client. How many phone calls do you need to reach a candidate, the typical candidates? How many candidates do you need to have at the phone in order to say, okay, now I'm going to have a physical meeting or video meeting with enough candidates then to have a shortlist? So we are basically talking about a funnel. To do that, well, you can definitely, so first, identify key metrics that you need, and usually those metrics are always linked to the time you need to reach your targets. And then over the different steps in your workflow, which one are really low value? And those tasks, you definitely should and you can automate them. So now you have tools on the market which are like I don't know, 20, 30, 50 dollars per month, something like that. And so I mean, it's not a huge budget, and those tools allow you to have some kind of automation to keep and save your people to spend time on useless tasks, in terms of they take a lot of time in the day, but then
Such
the
as
value
what?
brought, such as definitely sending messages to candidates, such as calling candidate again, calling you have an interesting CV, you call the person, person doesn't answer, then he or she calls back, you're not available, and then back and forth. And if you multiply by that by, I don't know, 50 candidates a week, or more, depending on the size of your team, the scalability is the scalability of wasting money. So you are not going to be profitable at the end of the week, and multiply by month and years, then you have an issue. So
So
what
is it like a scheduling thing or like an email automation tool, like a Mixmax or like a scheduling, like a Calendly?
Absolutely, Calendly,
Okay.
Mixmax. I'm still amazed today to see that some agencies or even some organizations, they don't use video interviewing, because
Mm,
I don't say it's the perfect solution, but for a lot of different cases, when you bring video interviewing, I'm talking about asynchronous video interviewing, obviously, with the right automation, somebody applying, if you have job ads out there, anybody applying to your job ad then receives an automatic email, an invitation for a 2 or 3 minutes video interviewing, bunch of questions, and then you can save the pre-qualification by the phone, which is usually by, I don't know, 15 minutes per phone, by somebody from your team. You save that, you cut that by, I don't know, 3 or 4, and then you have the same result. So you save a lot of time, it's automated. And again, the point is not to replace people in your team by robots. The point is to save your team's time, doing emails and doing, trying to fix the agenda issue, and to give them more time facing the candidates and the clients. I think
yeah.
that's the most important eventually. So automation allows that. And to come back to your question, once you've done that, first of all, you're probably more profitable than before. Second of all, you'll also spend more time understanding your candidates and your clients. So this understanding is, of course, a gold mine for your business development and the way you interact with your candidates and clients. But I think that's also a source of knowledge and then of content to boost your marketing. I think today, what I see, most agencies, they are really bad in terms of sharing their knowledge and expertise for free. And why is that? Well, basically because it's for free, probably, and also because they don't have time. So the time issue, probably by automating some stuff, some tasks, you'll get a bit more time. The free issue, well, I would say don't be scared of sharing some kind of free content, but not just low value content. Try to share something that really is meaningful and valuable. um, why? Well, you might sell that to your clients, yes, maybe, but you will see that people that you didn't even identify in your client's organization or other companies will contact you and say, hey guys, I saw you write your white book, I saw your webinar, I saw whatever content support that you shared, and basically we have this issue. So, the typical thing, and it's something that you have to spend a bit time on. Share some free content on these are the 10 tips on writing the best job ad, or the do's and don'ts in writing, attractive job advertisement that stand out. Uh, I would also say I've done that in the past. It works well. You train your clients' HR or talent acquisition teams. You spend 2 hours with them for free. You go in their premises when it's possible, obviously, and then you share how do you write, let's say, punchy messages to get potential candidates feedback. In some cases, when you have scarce resources, definitely the issue is not to identify the person, is to have a contact and a discussion with that person. Who better than the agency is able to create this contact, and then train your clients on that. My clients, usually the agency, they will say, oh, if I train that, I share my core activity, my core added value. So my client won't need me again. Well, don't worry for that. They will need you again. No reason that. And on the other side, just to end the question, talk to your candidate the same way. Coach them with the interviews they will have with your clients, but also coach them when they don't have an interview plan with your clients. Stay in contact with them. Don't just call them, when there is a need. Try to say, okay, each and every week, any person in my team will do that with one candidate, one person, and that's 4% a month. That's probably 40% a year. And then at the end of the day, those people, they will take jobs, whether that's through you or not. They will take jobs, and probably some of them will have a responsibility and will need to hire. And at that day, they will remember who was there with them when they needed it as a candidate.
Yeah, this is all really good advice. It's not solely constrained to digital transformation as well, which is great. I'm kind of curious from what you've seen from different companies, like somebody who's hearing all this, I think a lot of it can sound a bit overwhelming because it's like it's so much stuff that you can focus on.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, I thought we were going to do an ATS next year, and that was going to be a pain in the neck. Now we got to do, scheduling and assessments and sourcing and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But of course, you can do this over the course of many years. What are some of the like sort of very high level case studies of like, hey, I saw, this was an agency that did X in revenue, Y in profit, and they did ding, 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 and now they're doing ABC in revenue and profit.
Hmm.
Are there any stories like that to kind of give us the motivation to say, okay, this is actually worth it?
Yeah. I'm not aware of, large case study or what you're mentioning. Maybe there are some, but I'm not aware of that. What I know is that, first of all, in terms of motivation, if you don't do anything, I'm sure you know that your clients on one side and your candidates on the other side, again, as we said earlier, they are questioning the value that you bring. So they are saying, okay, what's this price about? Why am I paying fees eventually for candidates I can find on LinkedIn? And as a candidate, what's your added value when I can, connect with a recruiter from that organization on LinkedIn as well, or Twitter or whatever. So be aware that if you don't do anything, probably you'll have some trouble. And I'm not talking in 10 years. I think quite quickly, when your fees are going to decline slightly, when your candidates, they will not be your candidates, but they will basically try to bypass you in a way or another. So technology is something that it's a word that sometimes is scary. And as you said, implementing an ATS or saying, okay, we have an ATS, it costs us money, and this guy we don't know is just saying that basically it's the graveyard, so what's the point of listening to him? I think there are now, which was not the case a few years ago, you have, for example, no-code tools or low-code tools. You don't need to be a developer, where you basically can definitely bring value to your business. So again, automation is in large part based on that. If you, I know you share resources through the website, so I think your audience knows where to find that. But definitely, if you want to increase profitability, if you want to relieve some pain over the shoulder of your teams, where, because somebody who is doing the same task over and over again, which is sending invitation on the calendar, that's not really something that you're happy to do. On another topic we've discussed that earlier, when you do business development, or when you have people that need to do cold calling to book appointments, this is not a really sexy task to do. A lot of people don't really like that. So if you can relieve a bit of pain over the shoulders of your team by automating that, by bringing content to potential clients, you'll be amazed of the results that's going to come. And in terms, I think the key issue here is how do you measure that? So it's really hard to talk about ROI when you start implementing those actions, because obviously you know how much it costs. Definitely, it's hard to track precisely what it brings back, because, for example, when you communicate on LinkedIn, for example, and you share some content, you will have a certain number of metrics that you're going to see. How many likes, how many comments, and then maybe you'll try to see the change in how many people visited your LinkedIn company page. But then how do you translate that in terms of visits on the website, of demands for meetings, of that's hard to measure. So I think one of the reasons why agencies are struggling with these issues is because we know how much it costs, we have no idea or low idea what it brings back. And I think the second thing is that a lot of agencies, let's say small size agencies, are based on a one-man show, one-woman show. So the founder is usually somebody who owns, let's say, the clients, and then there are a bunch of recruiters or junior recruiters doing the delivery. This is a profitable business up to a certain level. So if you are profitable, just question whether or not you want to be more profitable, and then think about, again, basic thing: write down your workflow, involve your team in writing it down, and try to identify for each step what you could do better. And then the other thing is, obviously, try to define some kind of goal and objective, which is, I think, the most difficult here, because, again, you know what you spend, you know what it costs. It's hard to measure what it's going to bring back. But hey, what about an ATS? You know what it costs. What does it bring to your business? How to say,
Mhm. Final question: are there any favorite tools that you have that you think folks should take a look at?
Yeah, well, a lot of them, of course. I'm in a test and fail sort of approach. So I think Zapier is definitely the tool. Talking about workflow, use Zapier, have a look at Zapier. All those tools with Zapier and all the other ones, they have, like, 14 days free trial. So try that, just try that. And it's usually, it's no code tools. You don't have to be developer again. So obviously Zapier is very interesting. I hear a lot about Airtable. Airtable is a way to organize your information. And again, coming back to the content thing, when you build content, and especially over the level of the team, then you need tools to basically share information inside the team before sharing it with your clients. Trello for product management, obviously. And then we have, for example, for email automation with a high level of personalization, there's a tool. There are, of course, a lot of tools, but one of them I use is Lemlist. Lemlist is quite strong in the ability, compared to others I tried in the same field, in the ability to really make personalized emailing. So it's like amazing. And again, try it, test it. If it fails, fine, it doesn't cost you any dollar. If it works well, it's going to be probably 10, 20, 50 times the ROI.
Awesome. Ben, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your knowledge. Where can people find you on the internet?
LinkedIn, obviously. The website 6ls.co, and that's already, these are the channels. And obviously, I'm more than happy to discuss with you, Phil. Thanks for today's invitation.